Okay. In Mark 5:36, Jesus said, "Be not afraid, only believe." Fear is a devastator of the accomplishments of all men, really. All women, children, young men, old men. Let me tell you. Let me show you the situation that Christ was into here. Okay. And he was going to go and heal this young girl. And the Bible said, while he yet spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue house certain which said, Thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further? And as soon as he had heard the word was spoken, he said unto the ruler of the synagogue, Be not afraid, only believe. Now it seems that as soon as something devastating comes along, fear, it doesn't just creep upon you. It grabs a hold of you and turns you every which way but loose. And Jesus said here, Be not afraid, only believe. Fear is the death knell of belief. I heard a story today Dwight Thompson told. He said that this Pentecostal preacher, they were from Findlay, Ohio, and he had a real nice church and a Bible school over there, and he had taught them to believe and to heal, to practice the word. He taught them the Bible, exactly what it says. And they were in need of a lot of money to help them to finish a project they had going at school there. Excuse me. So this prominent lady of this rich man, he said, called the teacher or the Pentecostal preacher, and he said his wife called. That's who he called, and said, do you believe in God? Can you come and comfort my husband? And I'm trying to remember exactly what he said, but I can't remember word for word. But she just wanted him to come and to comfort her husband while he was dying. And he said, sure. He says, come on. He says, I'll come. And so he told one of his students there, one of his best students, he said, come go with me. He just wanted him to come and watch of what was going to take place. And you know, it seems like as we get older, our faith seems to dwindle. And I noticed that by watching Brother Thompson. Because you get to the place where you've heard everything 100 times. You've done everything 100 times. And yet nothing happens. Nothing prevails. You see a little bit here, a little bit there, and it seems like nothing ever rises above the natural eye of man to see anything. So as this teacher got older, his faith began to dwindle. But this young man that was with him, not so. And I'll show you what I mean. they went into the room where the man was sick, and his wife said, he's over there, go do what you can do, comfort him. And so he got out the 23rd Psalms, the preacher did, and he read the 23rd Psalms. And Dwight said that he read it better than he'd ever read it before. And he expressed it in such a fashion that it was the most eloquent time he has ever read the 23rd Psalms. And said just out of the corner of his eye he saw this young Bible student that he had taught this. I think the Lord, he wasn't old enough to be afraid. You know what I mean? The young seemed to have no fear. And he took this Bible and he put it across the chest of this man who had cancer. And he began to pray for this man. He says, I speak to this death. Come out of this man. And in that fashion, he slapped his hand down on the Bible like that, on his chest. And then the sick man, he began to cough. And the preacher, he goes, oh no, says, this is what Dwight said he was saying. Oh no, said now he's coughing, and said the preacher began to apologize to the woman, said, and he took the young man by the hand and he led him out of there, and he took him back to the school, and he said he wanted to just tell him off, but he didn't want to do that, and he said he had thought about they ruined the chance he had to get the money to finish the project. It was just ruined, and now he didn't know what was going to happen because this young man done that to this rich, prominent fella. And he said that he just was in dreads about what was going to happen next. So he took the young man home, and he got home, and he walked in the door, and his wife was on the phone, and she handed him the phone like this. It says it's the fellow, the lady at the hospital. Said she's on the phone, she's wanting to talk to you, and the man's like, oh no, what are we going to do now? And he was thinking he done died, you know. He got on the phone, hello, and it was the man's wife. He says, look, she says, I don't know what you've done. He said, but since you left, says my husband sat right up in the bed and said he's been asking for food. He's on his third bowl of soup. And he says he wants you to come back. He said, where did you go? He said, tell him to come back. He says, and bring that young man with him when he comes. You know, be not afraid. Only believe. Only believe. That's what Christ teaches us. You know, the Lord spoke to me when I was a young man. And as I get older, it seems like God speaks less. It's not that He speaks less, it's just there's less of words that He speaks. You know? I mean, I've been looking ever since I was that young man. I've been looking for the faith that it took for God to speak to me that first time. The Lord has never spoken such a fashion as He did that first time when I was only about 11 years old. It was a supernatural thing. I was wide awake in the middle of the day, and just out of nowhere, this lightning flashes, takes the perfect form of the devil. God had spoke to me in a tenth of a second, changed my life forever. That childlike faith that we need to find to change the world around us, that we'll have enough courage and strength and put out the fear that causes us not to rise up. Take our Bible and slap it on the chest of the devil and say, stop what you're doing. Come out of my family. Stay out of my finances. I speak to you. Be moved, mountain, be moved out of my way, just like Jesus said we can do. Speak to this mountain and be moved. This is the kind of faith that it's going to take to bring the revival to this land that we need. Everybody's looking for this Elijah. Everybody's looking for an old man. It might be a 20-year-old man that still has enough courage to get up and slap his hand on the chest of a dying man and say, live again. I say to you, live. Just like Jesus did to this young girl. He had to put them all out, if I remember this story right. He had to put them all out because of their unbelief. Isn't that something to think about? God is such a good God. I enjoy so much talking about Him. And I thank you for joining me again today. Come back again, well, it'll be Monday now, where we'll be right here with another great subject on Crossing the Middle Ministry. God bless.